And away we go. Larry Krueger back with you on a Saturday. One of the leaders in the KNBR Fantasy Football League is back with you on a Saturday. Murph was not available. Yes. It's so sweet when you're 2-0 and Murph's 0-2. He's like, he had me on this week, and he was like, you know, you're the 7th highest scoring team in the league. And I'm like, yeah, something told me you took some time and looked that up, buddy boy. 2-0, feeling good. And the Niners are 2-0 and feeling good as well. And welcome to 49er Forecast. This is not Niners Nightly because it is not nighttime. 49er Forecast comes to you on a Saturday right here in this hour, in this time slot. The great Raph on the controls. We got the A-team on a Saturday. Really fired up about that, having Marty's best guy running the show. By the way, I'll be I'll be the front man for Marty's movie, the second world premiere coming
Great
up
job,
next Saturday. Brother. Thank you. Do you have the Marty line where he's like, and today's game is delayed? There's a rain delay because
rain out due to rain.
There's a rain out due to rain. Welcome to 49er Forecast on a Saturday. And if it seems like I'm in a great mood, I am in a great mood. My son's high school football team, the Northgate Broncos, got a nice win last night. The JVs did, at least, and my kid's a JV. So they got a nice win. So that was very, very good. They're 4-0. And next week they get Todd Husek's Menlo. His kid plays for Menlo. So Todd and I will have some fun chopping it up on Sunday at talking trash to each other about this game. My kid already told me, Dad, don't talk trash about Menlo and Northgate. I'm all right. I'll keep my trash talk just to pro sports. But welcome to 49er Forecast, and we got a great hour. Jordan Elliott's going to stop by. NBC Sports Bay Area's own, one of the best young football analysts, I think, in the Bay. Really does a great job. And we'll get his thoughts on the 2-0 Niners, who have looked really good. They got one win with Brock Purdy. They got one win in New Orleans with Mac Jones. The defense looks good. Their NASCAR package up front on the defensive line looks outstanding. The 49er offensive line is looking pretty good as well. So I think overall, you got to feel pretty good about where the 49ers are. Now, yesterday at practice, I did not see Trent Williams. But after I left, supposedly he was there. So I never saw him practice. But once the media got chased out, he supposedly did practice. And I think Trent's going to go. Trent was very, very good last week in New Orleans, despite the fact he's playing with a knee bruise. So that's kind of a current spot for, as far as the Niners, so you're totally up to speed. Trent didn't practice, is going to play. Saron Neal and Kyle Juszczyk both practiced. They were both in the blue non-contact jerseys for a lot of the week, but they were out of the blue non-contact jerseys on Friday. Both Neal and Juice trying to come back from concussions. And then Christian McCaffrey, Bosa, Purdy, they all practiced. Purdy, Shanahan said it's a game-time decision, but then the next sentence he's like, it's highly unlikely he's going to play. He's not going to play. I could have told you Wednesday he wasn't going to play. He just didn't look the same. He's just not putting his foot on the ground with the same way he normally does. And, that means there's probably some pain in that toe. And turf toe, if you need an example of turf toe getting exacerbated and being bad and really bad, it ended Patrick Willis's career prematurely. It kicked out Joe Burrow until December. He needs surgery. It sounds so benign and so nothing, right? It's like, turf toe. He's got turf toe. He stubbed his toe. No, it's like a dislocation. It's very painful. And you use your toe to press off. You can't run. You can't explode. One of Brock Purdy's greatest attributes is his 1.54 10-yard split in the 40. He's very, very quick. He's got a 1.54 10-yard split. You say, well, give me some perspective on that. Tyreek Hill is maybe the fastest guy in the league. His 10-yard split's 1.50. Purdy's is 1.54. So Brock Purdy's big part of his value proposition is his escapability, and that's a lot tied to his feet and his healthy toe. So he's got turf toe, and just you got Mac Jones, you got a second starting quarterback, and you got a pretty easy schedule. Do not let Brock Purdy play until your doctors decide he's ready. Something tells me if Mac continues to play well, this toe's probably going to heal faster. But you got to protect Brock from himself. He's a crazy competitor. Do not let him back on that field until that toe is right. Because you got to take the macro view of this season. 49ers look like a Super Bowl contender of note. Granted, they've played 2 games, but so far so good. So you want to have Brock Purdy standing at the end of the year. And if you're one of these people that is like, you've listened to, either the wrong media person or the wrong content creator who's like, hey, it makes no difference. Mac is better than Brock, wrong. Got that one wrong again. Calais Campbell, veteran defensive lineman who's been in this league forever, was asked that question by Tom Pelissaro and Ian Rappaport this week. Hey, who would you rather have? Who would you rather play, Purdy or Jones? And he's like, you want me to be honest? You want me to be truthful? But yeah, be truthful. He's like, I'd rather play Jones. He's like, Jones has been in this offense for a minute. Purdy's the master of this offense. He knows it and can operate it expertly. So Calais Campbell is like, no doubt in my mind, I'd rather face Mac Jones than Brock Purdy. And so, yeah, is Mac Jones been good? Yeah. Is he better than Brock Purdy? No, he's not. He's not. At least I don't think he is. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe we're just getting the beginning of the greatness of Mac Jones, and he's gonna be fantastic. And I hope that's the case. Maybe he'll make the decision very, very difficult, but he's playing this week. As far as the other injuries, Jordan Watkins has got a calf injury. He's going to be out several weeks, according to Kyle Shanahan. That is a bummer. Spencer Burford's worked on the side. He's got a knee injury. And that's a big one because he's their backup left tackle. So what happens if Trent Williams can't go, you're going to go to Austin Pleasance, who hasn't played left tackle all summer for the most part. He's just been a right tackle. So I don't know. I mean, that could really be a problem for the 49ers in this game if Trent somehow gets hurt in the middle of the game. Yatir Gross-Matos, his status, he's still battling a knee injury. I thought Gross-Matos and Mikael Williams has just been a revelation in their NASCAR package at defensive tackle. The guy who I think is the most interesting to watch as far as injuries tomorrow, excuse me, is Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings has an ankle injury. He's got a shoulder injury. He was the Niners' leading receiver in week 2. He got like a 56% target share, far and away the number 1 receiver. And he didn't practice all week. Did not practice all week. Now, most of the time, you would say that's for sure JJ's not going to go. But I don't know. Maybe the Niners have some kind of an agreement with him that he can, sit. I mean, he's such a big game guy. And I just feel like he might be in that special category with Trent and a couple of their special veterans that, it's the rules don't apply. Trent didn't practice last week and still played and then played really well in the game. Juwan Jennings, how much does he practice this year? To me, it's going to be very interesting to watch week to week because he's got free agency in March. And the last thing Rosenhaus wants, his agent, is for JJ to not be healthy in March. So, and maybe the Niners are on board with that. Maybe the Niners are like, hey, you know what? This is the ultimate big game guy. We'll let him police himself. He can practice when he feels like it. Maybe they're in that mode, and maybe that might be a private, declaration. That may not be a, we may not announce that publicly, but that may be their stance and their position privately with Juwan Jennings. So if he plays in this game, that probably is a question next week for Kyle. Is like, hey, is JJ now at that level where he really doesn't need to practice and he can still play in games? Is he at that level of trust with the coaching staff and with Kyle and the offensive staff? He probably is. He probably is. So that will be something to watch. Is Jennings up? And if so, can he go? And if he can go, what can he contribute? And I think that's something to look for. All right, let's get to our keys of the game. because there are a few and keys to victory. And when we're in a show called 49er Forecast, I think most people would tune in expecting that we're going to forecast a little bit about this game coming up tomorrow. So let's get right into that before Jordan Elliott joins the conversation. I have a number of keys to the game as far as keys to victory, and I'll just go through them right now for you guys. I think the number one is how the 49ers rush Kyler Murray. You know, Kyler Murray had a 50-yard touchdown run against the Niners. If you give this guy a rush lane, it's a house call. I mean, he's going to hit pay dirt. He's going to take it the distance. So how the 49ers rush Kyler Murray, I think, is the number one key in the game. You know, the Niners love to play stunting games and twists and move guys around, and it's really advantageous. They're really good at it. And you know, you get some mismatches up front. You get some great runs at the quarterback, and I think it makes the quarterback kind of a little uneasy. He's got all kinds of bodies coming and going. He's having a hard time kind of breaking down where the pressure potentially is coming from. It's a good way to get a quarterback on the ground, but it also is a good way to give a quarterback an obvious rush lane. And so it's going to have to be a well-coordinated four-man effort. When they had Eric Armstead, he was so good at just kind of sliding to his right or left to kind of keep the quarterback hemmed in that pocket. For Kyler, you want to keep him in that pocket and you want to squeeze it down. He burns you for a 50-yard run last year because he broke contain. Most quarterbacks break contain and it's like, he ran for a first down. This guy can run 80 yards. He's that quick. He's that explosive. So rush him in a well-coordinated four-man rush that keeps him hemmed in the pocket. Do not give him obvious rush lanes. That's number one. Two, Robert Saleh through 2 games has blitzed 21% of the time, which is up from his last stint because of the personnel that he's got now. He's got to dial up more exotics. He's got to dial up more pressure on third downs because he doesn't have across the board D Ford, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner. Everybody's in their prime. You know, that's what he had back in 19. He doesn't have that right now. So he's gonna bring blitz. He blitzed 21% of the time, some 5-man pressures, some 6-man pressures. But if you blitz Kyler, I think you got to do it with smaller guys. You know, he's kind of like Russell Wilson, except he's better as far as he's harder to corral. He's harder to tackle. He's harder to break down in space against and bring him to the ground. He's just so shifty. He's so quick. He's probably the most difficult guy to sack, which, you know, it's amazing the Saints got him 5 times in week 1. That's probably him holding the ball too long. But, you know, if you watch him move, his stop-start, his quickness, he's always he's moving, looking to throw. He's a hard guy to defend. So I think if you send extra guys at him, you blitz this guy with Upton Stout. You blitz this guy with Jair Brown. You know, send Tig Brown at him. Blitz him with a safety. Blitz him with a corner. Blitz him with smaller bodies. Smaller bodies break down more consistently. They're more apt to get him on the ground. This has been the struggle against Russell and the struggle against Kyler to this point. Kyler's beaten the Niners 3 out of the last 4 times. I think the last 3 trips to Levi's, he's come out on top. Part of the reason is the Niners have these big, physical, 275-pound, you know, edge-setting defensive ends, and they just have a hard time ever getting to Kyler Murray. And he just his stop and start, and you just can't get him. It's like playing tag against somebody who's more athletic, and they're just bigger. So you're just going to have a harder time with bigger guys. So send smaller guys at him when you're bringing 5- and 6-man pressures. Bring Upton Stout off the slot. You know, bring Chase Lucas. I'd love to see Lucas get a couple free runs at Murray in this game. The way he is such an absolute on-point blitzer. Love what I've seen in the preseason from Lucas. This might be his game. You throw him out there and you blitz him, and you send him at Kyler, and he, you know, comes. If somehow Chase Lucas can bring Kyler to the ground, you got real advantage there. Okay, James Conner, Trey Benson, big powerful combo. You got to go low on those guys, and you got to wrap. You know, they'll run through arm tackles. Benson's a home run hitter. He had a 50-yard run in week 1. Offensively, Mac Jones got to take care of the ball. Why did Mac Jones look so good last week? He didn't throw any picks. No picks. Now, he threw a couple pick-worthy passes, but they weren't picked. He only had the one turnover on the fumble. That was the key. If he turns it over, they're going to lose. If he can somehow take care of the football, they got a great chance to win. Pick on Arizona's pass defense. They're really banged up on the corner. Will Johnson, the rookie's dinged up. They got a corner they just put on IR. They're really banged up across the board in the secondary, specifically at corner. Pick on that pass defense. When you do pass, you got to chip these ends. Baron Browning is a converted linebacker. Josh Sweat's probably one of the premier young edge rushers in the game right now. He got paid in free agency. These guys have looked really good in the first two games. That duo for the Cardinals has 19 pressures in the first two games. So you got to help Colton. You got to help Trent. You got to chip these defensive ends with running backs and make them, adjust not just to the tackle, but to the chip. I think you got to target Arizona's middle, deep middle and intermediate middle. Opposing quarterbacks against Arizona on throws over the middle this year are 34 or 45. That's 75% for 367 yards and a touchdown. So go after them in the middle of the field. They use Budda Baker on a lot of their coverage stuff. He's up on the line of scrimmage. Sometimes they don't have middle of the field defenders. Teams have targeted their middle and have gone at them. Let Arizona make the mistakes. Arizona is the NFL's second most penalized team over the first couple of games. They've got over 10 penalties per game on average. They're giving away 75 free yards per game. Let them do it. Let them do it. Saints made too many penalties. Let Arizona do the same. If you're going to pressure Arizona with extra pressures, go at their guards. Evan Brown and Isaiah Adams have allowed 6 pressures already in the early going. The Niners need to commit to the run in this game. Play complementary football to protect the NFL's third youngest defense. That's what the Niners defense is, third youngest in the game. Arizona's opponents thus far in 2 games have only averaged 17 rush attempts against them because Arizona's gotten off to big leads and taken away opponents' rush games. The Niners roll in averaging 31 runs a game. So don't fall behind. You run the heck out of the ball at times, commit to the run, and see if you can, get your young defense to not log as many minutes. And then win on third downs defensively. Arizona's got a 40.9 third down conversion rate. That's 17th in the NFL. Beat them on third downs, get off the field, and the Niners have been really good at that. Robert Saleh has been really, really good at third downs. The Niners have been getting off the field. All right, let's do this. Let's take a timeout. Jordan Elliot from NBC Sports Bay Area is a really smart football analyst. He's going to join us next. We'll break this game down more. It's not Niners Nightly. It's 49er Forecast on a Saturday. Larry Krueger with you on the Sports Leader.
KNBR, the Sports Leader. see Brock Purdy make progress this week?
Yeah, a lot of progress. I thought he had a good week. Hopefully we can get him up for the game.
We'll go into that decision, Kyle.
See how he does tomorrow. Just talking to him. I think it's highly unlikely that he'll start. I'm just trying to see where he's at to see if he could be a 2 or an emergency 3.
This is where you get your faithful fix. 49ers Forecast with Larry Krueger keeps rolling on KNBR, the sports leader.
Welcome back to 49er Forecast, and joining us on the Yuma guest line this segment to look ahead to tomorrow's matchup between the Niners and the Cardinals. The home opener is Jordan Elliot from NBC Sports Bay Area. He's fantastic. He's a great follow on X at @splash_cousin, and he is with us on the Yuma guest line. Jordan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Larry. How you doing?
Hey, man, it's always great to talk to you. I'm doing fantastic. Excited about this game. What do you think of the 49ers 2 weeks in? They're 2-0. Is all right with the world, or is this fool's gold?
I think it's extremely encouraging that they've come away with 2 wins. They might not have been the prettiest wins, particularly that week 1 game in Seattle, but that's usually how division games go. And I think with the amount of snaps that they're giving to these younger players and the amount that these rookies are playing early, the fact that you are able to come away 2-0, coming home against a team that you've had your struggles with over the years, but you're very familiar with and you can prep a game plan for. I think they're in a pretty good spot, and there's a very realistic path to starting out 3-0, which anybody would take if you told them that going into the season.
It's funny. There's so many different. We're in 2025. There's so many different media, places you can go. There's more coverage than ever before. There's video. There's stats. There's there's advanced statistics. There's people like yourself who are writing columns and NBC Sports Bay Area is doing breakdown. Everybody, there's so much info, but I think the most compelling information I've seen on the Niners this week is not a video. It's not a story. It's not stats. It's a single picture of the snap of the final snap of the game. It wasn't the final snap of the game, the final meaningful snap for the Saints, where Bryce Huff sacked the quarterback, forced the fumble, and that was, of course, 4th down, turnover on downs. And somebody put out a picture of just like a nanosecond after the snap. And what you see is all the D linemen are still pretty much in their stance. Bosa is coming out of his stance, and you can see his helmet a little bit in front of theirs. And then you see down the line, and Bryce Huff is 3.5 feet already into the backfield. And it kind of just shows, it illustrates the unbelievable get-off of Bryce Huff. And it's such a subtle thing. It's like he doesn't look like a lot when you look at him at practice. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the most powerful guy. And it's hard for us to really measure get-off. But every time this guy got off the ball this summer, Chris Kasarik was yelling, great get-off, great get-off, And now I think, we saw it on that snap. He is a difference-making edge rusher. Jordan, I think he's the best edge rusher the Niners have had opposite Bosa, period. Where do you rank Huff with, Ford and the other guys they've had?
I still have D Ford ahead of him just because I think the year that D Ford was mostly healthy in 2019, the environment around him was so beneficial for him to flourish. The rest of that defensive line was obviously fantastic. You still had Armstead inside. You still had Buckner inside. I do think that Ford, when he was at his best, just brought a level. To me, he was an all-pro level player that season with the way that he was finishing, the technique he was playing with. But I do agree with you in the sense that the Niners haven't had a player really close to that or fit that archetype since D Ford left the team. They've found ways to get creative and get pressure. They've found ways to kick guys inside. Guys like Charles Omenihu, who are traditional edge rushers, found ways to have success rushing over centers and guards. But they haven't really had a guy that just had that get off like you were talking about, just the ability to explode off the ball at the snap. The thing that really, really impressed me with Bryce Huff on that final rep, the game sealing rep, was that it wasn't just his get off to me. It was the technique that he used. There's a move that's often referred to as ghost technique, where you essentially bait the offensive linemen into trying to get their hands on you. And then as they make that move forward, you essentially dip underneath them and you clear the edge entirely. And basically the offensive linemen just swing in at air. And Huff executed it to perfection. So his get off not only was just tremendous on this play, he went into it with a plan and he attacked this tackle with a big time move. You rarely see that move, and when it's executed, it looks great, but it's also extremely difficult to pull off. And Huff reached into his bag and did that on a 4th down to seal the game. So I think that in itself is extremely encouraging, that he not only has the physical traits you mentioned, but he also has the ability to kind of mix and match what he's doing and pull something like that out of his pass rushing bag in a moment where you really need it. And I think sorry.
No, I was going to say, what's that dance called they do on cruise ships where you have to like get underneath the sticks? Limbo. Bryce Huff would be just a literally Hall of Fame limbo.
Absolutely.
Because he can get low.
I think the thing that was really encouraging too, Larry, is that we've seen the defensive line close 2 games. And when the Niners went to the Super Bowl the first time under Kyle Shanahan in 2019, that was typically how they were finishing games. It was they would get ahead, the other team would be forced to throw the ball a lot. They get in obvious passing situations late in the second half, and that defensive line was able to just kind of tee off, pin their ears back, and get after the quarterback. And while I don't think that this defensive line is as equipped to do it for an entire season the way that stack line in 2019 was, I think it's very encouraging that we're seeing this defensive line finish games in that manner so early on.
Huff has just been a huge impact on the 49ers, and he's had a huge impact on Mikael Williams. I was asking Bosa earlier this week. I said, Nick, now that you got like the speed merchant opposite you and Huff, doesn't that stretch out the offensive line because the tackles have to kick out that much faster? And doesn't that create bigger, rush lanes inside in your NASCAR package for Gross Matos and Mikael? And he said, absolutely. He's like, the tackles have to get out there. He's like, it automatically stretches out the entire line. And to me, if Mikael and Gross Matos get more space, they're going to win more often. The guards win against those guys if they can get them in tight quarters, but they beat those guards pretty consistently when there's that extra space, and Huff is providing that space.
Absolutely. And, the 49ers love going to that wide 9 front too, where you are putting one of these edge rushers so far outside of the alignment that it really does create a lot of angles that are tricky for these pass protection sets to account for. And the way that Williams and Gross Matos have been winning inside, just in their one-on-one matchups, but also with the creativity that Chris Kasarik and Robert Saleh are using with some of these stunts and twists that they're using, it's really been fascinating to watch. And I think that one of the things that really stood out to me too was for the first half of that game against the Saints, for the first 4 or 5 third and longs where it was fairly evident that they were going to have Rattler drop back and the Saints were going to be throwing the ball, they threw a different front at them every time with the defensive line. They had one where Bosa was lined up kind of almost in like a 4-eye, nearly a 3-tech position inside over a guard. Then the next time they kicked Gross Matos way out wide and had Williams inside of him. And then they had one where they had Huff and Bosa both on the same side of the line. So I think the fact that all of these guys are being very versatile in the way that they're able to line up is extremely valuable. And I also just think the fact that they're not relying on, in 2019, it felt like it was just like, hey, we have 4 world-class edge rushers. We don't care if you know what's coming. You're just not going to be able to stop it. And that nearly won them a Super Bowl. I think they know that the talent level might not be the same this year, but they still have a really, really good group of players in that defensive line unit. So they're able to kind of mix and match. And so far, they've been pressing all the right buttons. Whether or not that's going to work for a full season remains to be seen, but it's been really impressive to see the way that they've been able to mix and match those fronts through 2 games.
No doubt. Jordan Elliott with us on the Yuma guest line, one of our favorite guests, breaking it down, talking a little Niners Cardinals in advance of tomorrow's home opener. Now, I started with Huff because he's such an impactful guy, but Mikael Williams, I mean, I was so wrong on this guy. I saw him play just in a short amount of time at, he played in a rotation at Georgia. He didn't play a lot. He didn't have a lot of great stats. A lot of the love for Mikael was based on projection. But man, the Niners had a plan, and they knew on draft day they were going to sign Bryce Huff, even though they hadn't announced it yet. and they were looking for a guy who could play the run and on first and second down at defensive end, because they were going to play Huff off the edge, and they wanted somebody who could flex inside on on passing downs. And Mikal really fit the bill, and he's done both jobs expertly. Especially last week, he looked amazing. I don't know if you saw these numbers. The 49er rushing success rate allowed for the 31 designed run snaps they faced this season when Mikal Williams has been on the field is 25.8%. The 49er rush success rate allowed for the 21 designed run snaps they faced this season when Mikal Williams has not been on the field is 66.7%. He has been a total factor in their run defense. He might be one of the best edge setting players in the league. Just across the board, his strength at the point, he just absolutely just abuses the tight end. He beat a tight end this week. You probably saw the rep. It was a one-arm deal. He just one-armed the tight end back into the backfield. He's got great strength at the point. Tell me what you think of Mikal.
I've been extremely impressed with him. Just as you said, the thing that really stands out is his ability to contribute in early downs. I think typically, when people are thinking about edge rushers, it's always focused on, are they able to get after the quarterback? What are their sack and pressure numbers looking like? But there's so much more to the game of football than just getting after the quarterback. And I think the 49ers knew with a pick that high in the first round, they were going to need a guy that could make an impact on all three downs and not just be somebody that you could throw out there on third and long. And I think that early on, it's extremely encouraging to see how much Mikal Williams is impacting all phases of the game. Because while I do believe his run defense is the thing that should be highlighted first, as you mentioned, he's also had some success getting after the quarterback, and he has had some success opening things up for other guys as well. So while he may not be the guy that's racking up these gaudy pressure numbers yet, when you turn on the tape and you start watching how these pressures are coming to be, a lot of times it is Mikal Williams eating up a couple guys on the interior, executing a stunt in a way that's going to clear things up for another player. Like in the first game against Seattle, one of the first, I think it was the first drive of the game, the 49ers had Williams lined up inside, Bosa was outside of him, and they effectively ran a stunt that was going to clear a path for Bosa to come around from the edge and loop through to the A-gap. And Williams positioned himself perfectly to just seal off that A-gap and let Bosa run through. And it's something that, he's doing his job. That's his assignment on the play. But when you're watching it, initially the center that he was sealing off had won the leverage, and Williams found a way in a split second to seal that off and not deter Bosa getting cut off there. And he ran right through and just absolutely obliterated Sam Darnold. And I think Darnold had to throw the ball away on the play, if I remember correctly. But it was just one of the little things that, it's not going to show up in a box score, Larry, and it's not something that you're going to see if you're looking up sack leaders and pressure numbers. But for me, for a guy that missed a lot of the preseason in his rookie year and his first start against, a division rival on the road, it kind of just showed me that this guy has that sort of it factor that you're looking for when you are taking a player that high in the draft. And so sky's the limit for him. He has all the physical tools. He's working with, in my opinion, the best defensive line coach in football. And he has a great group of veterans to lean on. And, what better mentor than Nick Bosa to lean on when you're, trying to kind of refine your pass rushing bag and kind of work on technique a little bit. But just based on the physical gifts he has, he's winning with just pure strength at a lot of times too, which is really encouraging.
It's going to be an interesting matchup. The Cardinals' offense is interesting. I was talking to Theo Mackey, their beat writer from the Arizona Republic, earlier in the week, and he's like, they're using Zay Jones and Michael Wilson to kind of run off the coverage, and then they're going underneath to Marvin Harrison and the tight end Trey McBride. And he said that's kind of what they're looking to do. And then teams, Connor looks a little old. Maybe he's a little banged up, but you got to wrap against those guys because Benson and Connor are powerful runners. The question I would have, and I think it's really essential, the Niners rush Kyler in a coordinated pattern. Don't give him any obvious run lanes because he will, he could take it the distance on you. We saw it a year ago. And then the other thing is, if you're going to blitz this guy, blitz him with smaller guys, because I've seen smaller guys have more success blitzing him because he's so quick and he's hard to break down in space against. And if you're 275, 280, 290, good luck. But if you're 200 pounds, if you're Upton Stout, I think you got a better shot. What do you think? Give me a quick thought on the Niner defensive game plan against this Cardinal offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think over the years we've seen like the most difficult part about playing this Cardinals team since Kyler Murray got drafted in 2019 is accounting for the off-script stuff. I don't think they really have an issue, with the scripted plays and game planning against whatever the offense is intending to run on any given play. It's more so what Kyler's able to do when he's extending plays, getting out of the pocket, escaping pressure, and then just kind of using his legs because there's been a lot of very, good dual threat quarterbacks in the league. There's a lot that are in the league right now that are very talented, but I struggle to remember a quarterback that was just as evasive as Kyler Murray. I do think him being about 5'8" has a lot to do with that, where it's just so easy to lose him in this sea of guys who are 6'4", 6'5", 300 pounds. And there's 10 linemen going at it, and all of a sudden this guy's slipping through the cracks, and then he's running 50 yards upfield untouched. Like it's something that is extremely difficult to account for because you can go in with a great game plan for it, but in the heat of the moment, there's just times where this guy's just too evasive. And I think, as you mentioned, having faster, shiftier defenders definitely can help with that. I know you mentioned Upton Stout. I was extremely impressed with the way that they used Upton Stout against the Saints. I think they blitzed him 3 times in that game, and he did get 2 pressures. And he hit he had a running back that he was going up against in pass protection both times, and he hit them with kind of this like hezzy crossover kind of move. Both times it worked, and both times he got a sack on one play, and then the other time he flushed Spencer Rattler out of the pocket. So I think if you're able to lean on the defensive backs, maybe more so than mugging the A gaps and blitzing your linebackers, I think that could be a strategy that works. That also does leave you a little bit more vulnerable on the back end. But, at the end of the day, if they can contain Kyler Murray's rushing ability, I struggle to see a path to the Cardinals consistently driving against this defense and putting up enough points to win this game. But that's also easier said than done. We've seen how that plays out over the years.
Oh, I agree. This game, I think defensively for the Niners is going to be limit explosives. They're going to run Zay Jones and Michael Wilson down the field. Well, guess what? They may throw a couple balls to those guys. You're going to have to play with poise in the air, with the ball in the air. You Niners have some young defensive backs. You can get big chunk yardage plays in the pass game, in the run game, with the quarterback running, or by penalty. And to me, eliminating explosives is going to be a major key for the 49er defense going up against this Cardinal offense. All right, let's flip the card, as they say, and talk about the Niner offense against this Jonathan Gannon 3-4 defense. Gannon actually was asked about Shanahan and what it's like to prepare to play against Shanahan, and you can see he's got nothing but respect. Here's Gannon on Shanahan earlier this week.
It's your third year in the division preparing for a Kyle Shanahan offense, at least with the 49ers. How would you describe preparing and game planning for a Kyle Shanahan offense?
Hard, difficult. Yeah. He's there's a reason he is who he is. He's brilliant. I think he adapts really well during a game, what he sees going on, how defenses are trying to negate some of the things that he likes to do, and he has multiple compliments to, if you're going to live like that, he's going to stress you out a little bit. So he's fantastic. It's hard. It's hard.
There you go. A lot of respect there from Gannon directed towards Shanahan. I think this is probably a pretty good rivalry. I mean, Shanahan, says a lot of nice things about Gannon as well. I'm sure there's probably no love lost between these two. They're battling for the same division. What do you think of the Niners offensively in this game against what stands out to you, I guess, about this Cardinal 3-4 defense?
I would say definitely the way their edge rushers have been winning early. Baron Browning, Josh Sweat, Zaven Collins, all 3 of them have looked really good. And they have the stats to back it up. All 3 of them have good pressure numbers. They have a couple, really stout veterans too. Calais Campbell's back in Arizona. Dalvin Tomlinson's there. So they do have some guys that can also hold up against the run that have been there, done that. Budda Baker, as we know, is, still playing at an extremely high level, is still a guy that you have to respect and account for on any play. He can make game-changing plays at any moment. I will say, though, that the thing that the Cardinals are dealing with right now is it seems like their cornerback room is very depleted right now. They have injuries all over the place there. And it's getting to the point where they're struggling just to get bodies in there to play this game tomorrow. So I will say that I think the way that Mac Jones played gave Kyle Shanahan the confidence to attack Arizona through the air. I don't think this is going to be some conservative game plan where they're just trying to, tread water until Brock comes back, whenever that may be. Mac threw the ball over 40 times last week. I think that there is a lot of confidence in the ability to win through the air. I think that Ricky Pearsall has looked fantastic to start the season. And so I would expect the 49ers to kind of test that early. And I do think that they still have one of the ultimate, I don't know if wild card is the right word, but, Christian McCaffrey is this guy where he has such a dynamic skill set that you really have to account for him doing so many different things on so many different plays. And the way that they're able to motion him quickly out of the backfield and get him into the route pattern really can disrupt the flow of the defense, especially when he's had success running the ball against the Cardinals over the years. They have to respect the ability of what he can do on the ground, but his ability as a receiver in this game is also something that I'm going to look for them to be leveraging here and kind of attacking the middle of the field and the second level of that defense with him running routes out of the backfield. So I would say that the 49ers, short passes, kind of, stringing together drives that way, and then setting up some of these explosives over the top would probably be the best way to attack this defense. I don't think that they're going to have a ton of success just, running the ball 40 times and, trying to play it safe. They are going to have to take some chances. And I think that Mac Jones not only has earned the confidence of Kyle Shanahan, it's clear that the guys on that team believe in him and trust him too. So I think that they're going to go out there and just let it rip.
Arizona has gotten off to a couple early leads, and so their opponents have only averaged 17 rush attempts per game. So I don't know if they're a proven entity yet as a run stop unit. I might want to test that. I mean, if you look at them inside, I mean, Darius Robinson played, they've got a 3-4 front, and Robinson played outside at Missouri. He's kind of inside in a 3-4, a 5 technique. And then one of their inside linebackers is Akeem Davis Gaither, and he's a rangy, athletic mover, but I wouldn't necessarily call him stout against the run. So I don't know. I might want to try want to try them and see exactly if they can stop the run. I know they do have some, they drafted Jordan Birch out of Oregon, who's a big defensive end, and he's playing outside linebacker in this defense. And you mentioned Zaven Collins. Collins is a guy they've tried in different spots, but I'm not convinced yet that the Cardinals are some juggernaut against the run. I would try them. But then, as you mentioned, they do have some injuries in the secondary, and the numbers say that they're, susceptible to pass plays in the middle of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've seen this over the years, Larry. Like, Kyle Shanahan is so good at, running the ball a little bit, drawing that defense in when they have that success, and then really finding those big holes over the middle off of play action. We saw it against the Saints on a couple of plays that happened week 1 against Seattle too. Like, it's just one of those things that you're just probably always going to get with this offense if you have success with the run. It does get a little bit more difficult when you are getting in these situations where you're having to get into 3- and 5-step drops and the other team knows that you're going to be throwing the ball. So I do agree that, kind of setting a tone early and establishing that run and establishing that the run is something that defense will have to respect is paramount to them winning this game. But I do think that there is a path to kind of attacking the center of the field here. And, Mac Jones made a couple of really nice throws. I think some of the best throws he made in that game actually were balls that weren't completed. There were a couple drops on balls he was throwing in tight windows over the middle of the field where I watched it back a few times and was extremely impressed with not only his willingness to make those throws, but the amount of zip and the anticipation that he was putting on some of these throws into tight windows over the middle of the field. So I think there's definitely a confidence there. And I think one of the things that's really leaning in the 49ers favor is that a lot of times when you have a backup quarterback in, like, as I said, you're just trying to tread water and, keep things afloat until the starter comes back. I think Mac Jones is a guy where they feel he's a starting level quarterback and they're not really having to alter the game plan too much and be too conservative with the way they are attacking opposing defenses. So I would expect them to take some chances and kind of build their way to some of those explosives and, kind of establish that run early and then set that up for those bigger plays later in the game.
Brock Purdy's such a great anticipation thrower, but then watching Mac Jones in this game against the Saints, and you saw a lot of the same thing. I mean, he threw a number of really nice throws that the ball is literally coming out of his hand before the receiver reaches the break point. So there's a trust there. Now, for Purdy, who's been in this offense and has known these receivers for a long time, that's one thing. But for Jones, who basically just got here, to be able to make the kinds of anticipation throws that he made without necessarily having the wealth of reps, practice reps that Brock has as far as, with each receiver, I was impressed by that. I mean, it shows that Mac feels comfortable enough with these receivers. They've repped it enough, at least the plays that they were running in the game, where he looked like he wasn't throwing those routes for the first time. He wasn't throwing anticipatory throws, for the first time with these receivers. He looked kind of in lockstep. It was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, I think that Mac Jones was a victim of unfortunate circumstance in New England, Larry. I think if we go back to his rookie season, a lot of what we saw on tape against the Saints, I think there's a lot of parallels to that first year where he was a Pro Bowler as a rookie. The Patriots made the playoffs. Like, he was a really good NFL quarterback his first season. And then there were some staff changes in New England where he ended up having a longtime defensive coordinator as his offensive coordinator in Matt Patricia. Joe Judge was in there. We saw he didn't have a ton of success with the Giants when he was running things there. Like, I don't think there was a ton of continuity there. And I think that the perception of Mac Jones on a national level definitely suffered because of things that were just outside of his control. I think it would be difficult even for the elite quarterbacks in the NFL to thrive under those circumstances that he had to deal with while he was there. And so I think we're seeing the guy that kind of showed those flashes early on, and definitely what we saw when he was at Alabama with that juggernaut of a team that won the national title in 2020. So I feel like that player's always been there, and he's just in an environment now where he's able to, just kind of be himself, and those throws that, he's confident making are going to be baked into a system that is very quarterback friendly. And just, I think honestly, Larry, too, just having the belief of the people around you is so important for quarterbacks. Like, being able to have that confidence, knowing that you don't, you have the belief of the guys blocking in front of you, the guys that are out there running those routes when you are making these throws with anticipation. And, every time you hear these guys come to the podium or talk in the locker room and they get asked about Mac, like, there's a genuine sense of joy. Like, they really like having this guy on the team. And so I think we obviously know they feel that way about Brock too. So having two quarterbacks that the whole locker room can get behind, I think, is just absolutely invaluable. And we're seeing it, a couple games into the season.
Now the guy's put in the work. I mean, he's won over the room. To me, he won me over when he told me that between minicamp and training camp, he practiced running the Niner offensive plays in his pads outside in Jacksonville. It's like you're outside in Jacksonville with pads on and 3,000 miles away from where you're playing your games in July heat. I mean, in Florida. I mean, that shows a level of dedication. And he's won these guys over with his personality. He's an easygoing guy. He makes guys laugh, but also his attention to detail. One last one for you on your way out the door, and it's always great to wrap with you. And I think people listening can hear why Jordan is so great at this. Give me your thoughts on Jair Brown. That, I think Jair was there with Wilkes, and he was very comfortable. The last couple of years, he regressed. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was the scheme. Now you got a new regime, and they're looking at this kid, and they're saying, hey, let's use the big nickel. Let's use him as a third safety. And I talked to him about it at his locker yesterday, and he loves being able to get on the field and help his team in any way possible. He loves the speed advantage that he has on the opponent when he's playing this big nickel alignment. What do you think of Jair Brown and how they're utilizing him?
Yeah, I think that that's a position for him that it's really allowing him to maximize his skill set. I think that with Pinnock and Siegel, they have a couple guys that, there's an adjustment period as they're stepping into more prominent roles on a new team and a new scheme. But I think in the long-term success, when you're looking at building out, a full season full of success, getting these guys comfortable early, even if you're going to take some of the growing pains, is really going to set them up for a stretch run. And I do think that ultimately Mustafa is going to come back too. And it'll be interesting to see what they do once he comes back, because, it's always a good problem to have too many good players at a position, but I am interested to see how that kind of snap count sorts itself out. But I do believe part of the reason Brown is being used in that role now is because they know that when Mustafa comes back, he's going to get slotted into one of those prominent roles as one of those starting two safeties, one of those guys who is going to be out there when there are only two safeties on the field. So I think finding a role for Brown to contribute in is something that's not only helping them now, but it's going to help them when that safety room is fully restored down the line when Mustafa comes back. And like you said, like having the ability to mix and match a guy who has the speed to cover, but also has the size to, you know, fit against the run and, you know, get in there and bang in the box when they're trying to, you know, grit out these short yardage situations. Like, I think it really just gives you a lot of variance. And I think the thing that's impressed me the most with Robert Saleh so far through a couple games is that it looks honestly to me like it's almost like an entirely different defense than what we saw the last time he was here. Because I think the last time he was here, they were very, they were extremely talented top to bottom. And so they were able to kind of just put the same things on tape over and over again to say, hey, like, we dare you to beat us. We have the talent. We dare you to beat us. And it was really hard for teams to do that. But this time around, they are really mixing, matching. There's a lot of guys that are kind of used like chess pieces now, and I feel like Brown's one of them too. So I think this is a role for him where it'll allow him to be the best player that he can be, and it also gives the 49ers a organic avenue to working Malik Mustafa back into the mix, because he was a sensational player in his rookie season. I'm really excited to see what he looks like coming back off of that injury. So I think it's all about just kind of maximizing that group that they have while also setting themselves up to be as efficient as possible, so there's not this log jam once Mustafa comes back down the line as well.
It's this, there's a reason that the NFL believes so much in the stopwatch. There's a reason that speed kills and is prioritized. And when you see the evolution of football, it always evolves into more speed on the field and less size. Linebackers used to be 260, like Matt Millen, wearing neck rolls. Now they're 215, 220. They're looking like Jair Brown, and they're looking like DBs, like safeties. And it's the evolution of the game. It's a passing game. Jordan, we could chop it up and talk football X's and O's for hours. Love your work, man. NBC Sports Bay Area, NBCSportsBayArea.com. Read Jordan Elliott. Follow him on X at @splash_cousin. Jordan, thanks again for your time, man. Have a great Saturday. Thanks for jumping on KNBR.
Always a pleasure, Larry. Thank you so much.
The great Jordan Elliott. Big fan of that guy. He's outstanding. All right, we're going to come back. We'll have our 49er stat of the day, and then we will get on with the rest of our Saturday on the Sports Leader.
KNBR, the Sports Leader.
3rd and 1 from the Saints 11. I formation. Jones under center. Turns around, fake handoff. Jones, toss, complete. Finds Luke Farrell, left side, breaks a tackle, inside the end zone. Touchdown! 49ers! Luke Farrell with his first career touchdown in the NFL. It's 6-0 San Francisco in New Orleans.
Man, I didn't know he had that kind of wiggle to him. Luke Farrell, just a nice little move. He was trying to get that ball tucked away after he caught it on the keeper, was wide open underneath.
Faithful, time to make some Niners noise. 49ers Forecast with Larry Krueger now continues on your proud home of 49ers football. KNBR, the sports leader.
Welcome back to 49er Forecast, coming down the home stretch on the hour. Thanks to Raph, thanks to Jordan Elliott, thanks to all of you for listening. That was Carlos Ramirez and T-Rock, Tim Ryan on the call from the Big Easy. Niners are 2-0 and looking to go to 3-0 tomorrow against the Cardinals. Guy Haberman will be alongside Tim Ryan on the call in week 3. Caught up with Guy yesterday. He's fired up about being on the call. And, of course, we're fired up to hear Greg Papa back on the radio. Greg, if you're out there listening, we love you, brother. And we miss you greatly. And we're glad that you're fighting the good fight and winning that fight. And we're loving you. So we can't wait to get you back. And we've dedicated this season to you across the board on KNBR. So we'll keep doing our thing, and you keep fighting that fight. It's time for our 49ers stat of the day. All right, how do the Niners slow down Arizona in this game? Arizona, I think, is going to be an interesting team in that you can't let Kyler dominate. You can't let him run around all day, break, contain, make a bunch of plays, hold the ball forever, burn you in the run game. They've been a pass-heavy team so far. Arizona's got 54 pass attempts and 34 rush attempts. So they're 60-40 pass run. They're a passing team. So the 49er secondary and the 49er front are going to be under the gun. Should be interesting. Niners will be in the all-whites, by the way, the all-white throwbacks. Also, Arizona is the NFL's second worst run-blocking team, according to PFF. 42.8% or 42.8 PFF grade for their run blocking. So that might be another reason why they're a passing team, 60% pass, 40% run. And Kyler Murray, though, despite the fact that, because they're passing so much, he's been pressured a lot. He's been pressured on nearly 33% of his snaps, and he's been sacked 6 times. He's a very difficult guy to sack. So to have him be sacked 6 times in the first 2 games kind of shows that, he's holding the ball too long. So it's going to be a very interesting, afternoon for sure. I don't think it's going to be the incredibly hot weather that it potentially could have been, but the Niners will be in the all whites. I'm excited to see them in the all whites. But that's going to do it for us. I like the 49ers to win a low scoring game. I'm going to say 24-14. 24-14. I could see 24-17, but I'm leaning towards 24-14. 24-14 49ers. Join me tomorrow. I'll be on the pregame and postgame with Adam Copeland, Tracy Sandler, Todd Husak. Get a chance to sit next to Husak throughout the game, and so that's always enjoyable, getting to hear a former NFL quarterback see coverage from a bird's eye view and being privy to those conversations. So I'm really looking forward to another 3 hours sitting there talking ball with Todd. He's one of my favorites. And then you join me in the post game. So we'll do a full post game deal as well. I'll go into the locker room and talk to the players and Shanahan and hopefully talk about the Niners running their record to 3-0, 2-0 inside the division. Wouldn't that be a nice way to start 2025? All right, that's going to do it for us. CBS Radio, or I should say Infinity Sports Radio. Coming up next to entertain you throughout the rest of your Saturday. It's time for me to go watch a little college football, maybe wager a little bit, maybe barbecue, and get in the right, proper frame of mind for a long Sunday in Santa Clara. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow on The Sports Leader.
KNBR, the sports leader.